lot is said about UFC fighters being in tremendous shape for their bouts. However, some of the members on this list don't quite follow that standard, whether it be genetics or their love for food. These fighters are fat. At just 5 feet 9, Chris Barnett is a member in this list for evident reasons. Surely, he is loved by the entire MMA community for being a fun-loving guy. And even though he is massively fat, he is still quite agile. Beast Boy can also fight. However, he broke the history books for the heaviest weigh-in of all time, breaking the heavyweight limit by 2.5 pounds.
267.5.
267.5.
He still goes out there and gets the job done. Currently, Barnett carries a 2-2 record under the UFC banner, with those 2 wins coming by way of knockout. And we are all excited to see what he does next. Mark Hunt is another man on this list whose looks may be quite deceiving. Mark has a devastating left hook and carries 10 KO wins out of his 13 pro wins. The Super Samoan is super fat, but also super powerful. And evidently, his MMA record isn't the prettiest. However, Mark Hunt will go down as a legend of the fight game for sure. And while Hunt is no longer in the UFC or practicing MMA, his transition to boxing has been smooth. Every now and then, we go back to watch the old clips from the first ever UFC event. It is hard not to forget about Tila Tuli, who weighed in at above 400 pounds. Despite the weight advantage, Tuli would have a short night against Gerard Gordeau. This would be the last time the sumo wrestler would be inside the UFC cage. Tuli would later on find a career as an actor, but to this day he still holds the record as the heaviest fighter in the UFC. Despite the loss in the UFC, Tuli would still be able to garner enough attention for another career. Derek Lewis is one of the funniest fighters on the roster.
He disrespected Popeye's chicken on a commercial for years ago.
But he is also one of the fattest fighters in this list. The Black Beast packs in the weight and usually weighs in at or around the heavyweight limit. Lewis can end your night relatively quickly.
Derek Lewis is talking about a very dangerous. Now he's put the pressure on the left combination. Lewis is punching big now. Look out. Dawkins covering up a lot. How about Dawkins still swinging back? Kick right. Oh, Lewis puts it out.
The Black Beast is a big boy with the ability to put someone out cold. With Lewis, you really can't afford to blink. Lewis is also a legend when it comes to the microphone.
What round they rise to finance?
And despite Lewis not being at the top of his game at the moment, he is still a legend. The big boy carries the most knockouts of the heavyweight division, and that is saying a lot. Despite his attempts at cardio improvements, Lewis remains as one of the fighters that runs out of gas the quickest. Lewis fans will stick by him regardless and hope that he enjoys his Popeye's chicken. Ben Rothwell is our next big man on the list. While Rothwell may be the king of bare-knuckle boxing, he was a tremendous opponent while in the UFC. Rothwell collected 28 knockout victories in his career as an MMA fighter. Rothwell is known for just packing a ton of power, and his physique may be tricky to figure out. Rothwell's finish over Brendan Schwab is one we will remember vividly.
Dazed, yep. Good right hand by Schwab. Oh, shot right. He's and it is all over.
Big Ben showed he could take it as well as he could give it. known for his unorthodox style. Roy Nelson is our next fat man on the list. Big Country is known as one of the most interesting fighters to watch. Nelson was known for being an all-out brawler, and he didn't like fights being pretty. Big Country had a peak male body, whether you'd want to admit it or not. One of his best performances has to be against Stefan Struve. Despite Struve being one entire foot taller than Nelson, Roy would end the fight within 40 seconds of the first round.
He's going to get inside and try to tee off. Just like that, Big Country looking to finish his fight. Struve trying to protect himself.
In his prime, Nelson always seemed to have a way to end the fight at a moment's notice.
Brutalized him with that kick.
Oh! Big Country! And it's all over!
Again, do not let his body type fool you. Roy Nelson can fight. You add Nelson striking to his hilarious personality and body type, and you have yourself a good time. Surely, everyone tuned in for his fight against Czech Congo. Until this day, fans recall his thunderous knockouts.
Doesn't want to have his back up against the cage either.
Oh! Big shot! Just like that! It is all over!
Nelson is the definition of never judge a book by its cover. To be completely fair, Paddy isn't physically fat. However, we need to include him on this list when he's during fight week. Paddy manages to tip the scales at or below the limit, so he's a true professional. However, the man is known to have an insane body transformation between camps. Allegedly, the Liverpool native drops 50 pounds in fight camps. He has said it himself, he enjoys food with a big passion. The man probably has an eating disorder, and the internet is ruthless. Some have compared Paddy in the off-season to be similar to Chris Griffin. He claims that the fat shaming doesn't get to him, and that as long as he makes weight, people shouldn't worry about it.
Everyone can try to fat shame me and say I've missed weight or what was it? Pull out.
It is still yet to be discovered if Paddy is the real deal, as he attempts to captivate his fans following a controversial win at UFC 282.